If your cell phone network provider is Sprint, then we can tell you that several million times last year, somebody who has a law enforcement ID card in his pocket somewhere went to the Sprint website and asked for the real-time location of somebody with a telephone number and was given it. Several million times. That's a service that you think of as a traditional service, telephony. But the deal that you get with the traditional service called telephony now includes a thing you didn't know, like spying. It's not a service to you, but it's a service. And you get it for free with your service contract for telephony. Right? You get for free the service of advertising with your Gmail, which means, of course, there's another service behind, which is untouched by human hands, semantic analysis of your email. And it all sort of just grewed up that way, right, in the blink of an eye, and here we are. Computers ought to keep logs. It's a very wise decision when making computer operating software to keep logs. It helps with debugging, makes efficiencies attainable, makes it possible to study the actual operations of computers in the real world. It's a very good idea. But if you have a system which centralizes servers, and the servers centralize their logs, then you are creating vast repositories of hierarchically organized data about people at the edges of the network that they do not control, and unless they are experienced in the operation of servers, will not understand the comprehensiveness of, will not understand the meaningfulness of, will not understand the aggregatability of. So we built a network out of a communications architecture designed for peering, which we defined in client-server style, which we then defined to be the disempowered client at the edge and the server in the middle. We aggregated processing and storage increasingly in the middle, and we kept the logs, that is, information about the flows of information in the net, in centralized places, far from the human beings who controlled, or at any rate thought they controlled, the operation of the computers that increasingly dominated their lives. This was a recipe for disaster. All of those decisions architecturally were made without any discussion of the social consequences long term. Part of our general difficulty in talking about the social consequences of technology during the great period of invention of the internet, done by computer scientists who weren't terribly interested in sociology, social psychology, or, with a few shining exceptions, freedom. So we got an architecture which was very subject to misuse. There are a lot of reasons for making clients disempowered, and there are even more reasons for disempowering the people who own the clients and who might quaintly be thought of as the people who ought to control them. If you think for just a moment how many people have an interest in disempowering the clients that are the mobile telephones, you will see what I mean. There are many overlapping rights owners, as they think of themselves, each of whom has a stake in disempowering a client at the edge of the network, to prevent particular hardware from being moved from one network to another, to prevent particular hardware from playing music not bought at the great monopoly of music in the sky, to disable competing video delivery services in favor of new chips I founded myself that won't run popular video standards, good or bad. There are a lot of business models that are based around mucking with the control over client hardware and software at the edge to deprive the human being who has quaintly thought that she purchased it from actually occupying the position that capitalism says owners are always in, that is, of total control. The architecture of the net put the logs in the wrong place. They put the logs where innocence would be tempted. They put the logs where the fallen state of human beings implies eventually bad trouble. And we got it. Facebook workers know who's about to have a love affair before the people do. Because they can see X obsessively checking the Facebook page of Y. There's some very nice research done a couple of years ago at MIT in a seminar I shouldn't name by students I'm not going to describe because they were a little denting to the Facebook terms of service in the course of their research. They were just scraping. But the purpose of their scraping was to demonstrate that you could find closeted homosexuals on Facebook. They don't say anything about their sexual orientation. Their friends.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thanks, Jay. I appreciate it. Their friends are out. Their interests are the interests of their friends who are out. Their photographs are tagged with their friends who are out. And they're out. Except they're not out. They're just out in Facebook, if anybody looks. Which is not what they had in mind, surely. A heuristic error in the minds of human beings about what is and is not discoverable about them is now our biggest privacy problem. My students, and I suspect many of the students of the teachers in this room too, show constantly in our dialogue the difficulty. They still think of privacy as the one secret I don't want revealed. And that's not their problem. Their problem is all the stuff that's the cruft, the data dandruff of life, that they don't think of as secret in any way, but which aggregates to stuff that they don't want anybody to know. Which aggregates, in fact, not just to stuff they don't want people to know, but to predictive models about them that they would be very creeped out to think could exist at all. The simplicity with which you can unanonymize, theoretically anonymized data, the ease with which from multiple sources available to you through third and fourth party commercial transactions for information, you can assemble data maps of people's lives, the ease with which once you begin constraining by the few things you know about people, the data available to you, you can quickly infer immense amounts more. If you are pretty widely known in the net, and all of us, for one reason or another, are pretty widely known in the net, we want to live there. It is our neighborhood. We just don't want to live with a video camera on every tree and a microphone on every bush and a data miner beneath our feet everywhere we walk. And the net's like that now. We have to fess up. If we're the people who care about freedom, it's late in the game and we're behind. Convenience is said to dictate that you need free web hosting and PHP doodads in return for spying all the time because web servers are so terrible to run. Who could run a web server of his own and keep the logs? You can always tell what's happening in your server, and if anybody else wants to know what's happening in your server, they can get a search warrant.